Preparing to live stream
You know?
for YouTube. All right, looks like we're live. Hello, everyone. Julia here with James. We're broadcasting this on November 19th, 2022. And we're going to start by talking about intentional communities. That's kind of the vibe in the ether now, isn't it? So many people are talking about doing that.
Yeah. The funny thing is with all of this, it's like an unknown quantity because there's probably quite a few groups that are not sort of even connected through Wi-Fi, so they're sort of like isolated communities. But yeah, hoping to get two up and running fairly soon. So it's like can get a network of things going. So still in the early stages at the moment, but it is all unfolding through doing intentional work. It's amazing. I mean, like Eugene, I mean, getting out to Mexico like that. I mean, there's another example. It's a very powerful unseen force seems to be at work with all this, a very positive force. So I'm very sort of optimistic about everything.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's so amazing that the way Mexican authorities are, it's just amazing. But he just had that determination that he was going to go, and he was real honest with them. And yeah, he said he was nervous, but there was something about him. He was just going to get here, and he did.
Excellent. That is the thing. The external will present, because it's like a mirror, so it will present these illusions to try and get you to feel the fear. But if you push through it, they just show themselves to be illusions, because a lot of these things, it's like Mexican border control. It's probably Chinese whispers, and it's been exaggerated. And of course, it's that saying about it's always the few that spoil it for the many. And you can see this pattern with towns and things in certain areas. They get a reputation, and then that reputation is like, oh, don't go and live there, that's an awful place, and things like that. So you can sort of see it in everyday life. And of course, the more people believe it, then they're feeding into it. So it does become real, even if there is no real substance for it in the first place. It becomes like a manifestation, just the way people are. I jokingly sort of said I left a comment on to Ken Wheeler saying it's true about the photon will behave differently if it's observed or not observed. If you think of the photon being scientists or whatever, because if you don't give these external things any attention, they definitely behave differently. They don't affect you in the same way. So there is some truth in that. And it being light, it's like usually visual. It's like, oh, have you seen this or have you seen that? And yeah, I'm not buying it. It's the same. I'm not buying into it.
Right. Oh, I'm not muted. Okay, good. Yeah. And so many people are just tired of being in the system and not getting ahead and not being appreciated, not even appreciate themselves. And it's just great that these opportunities are coming up, and so doable. You can learn how to do anything now with YouTube videos, and really you just make up your mind and everything seems to fall into place to make it happen. You don't even really have to plan. It's so amazing how it's working these days.
This is it. It's like the sort of like an irrational fear with like growing things. It's like, well, put a seed in the ground, it's going to do one or two things. That either will grow or it won't grow. And then process of elimination, maybe it's not the right soil or not watered enough, and just experiment. And it's like, well, if you don't get it right first time, just have another go, try something different. But like you say, there's loads of YouTube videos. There's a method called square foot gardening. There's there's lots of companies will sell you these things, but you can download plans, so it will show you what you can plant. So maybe one aubergine or eggplant in the first 1 square foot, and then maybe two. I think it's 2 tomato plants or something, because they've obviously got to have enough room. And it's a no dig method that was developed. There's an engineer that looked at it and thought, well, the way, and it does seem like, well, why is gardening made so labor intensive? It's been turned into something that can almost become like a chore, and if your heart's not really in it. But it doesn't have to be that way. Nature doesn't turn soil, it just lays on top. So the simplest gardening in a way is get a couple of hay bales and stick some potatoes in there, and you probably won't even have to water them. They're just, nature will do the rest. I mean, how simple is that? There's no real labor involved.
Exactly. You have to keep it simple instead of trying to complicate everything. And look what modern agriculture has done to all the
Yeah,
land and the food. I mean, nothing is good anymore because of it. We have to get back to the simplicity and the basics of it. Like you said, we don't have to do all that extra stuff. And that raised
na-
bed gardening is a great idea. You put awesome soil in there, you plant your seeds, and you just wait.
nature doesn't grow in open fields of the same thing. In some ways, some of the best things you can get are what I call accidentals. It's where the birds have eaten whatever, and then as they're flying, they poop and drop the seed, and something will just naturally grow. And it's sort of like, that's a freebie from from nature that way, and they're always worth looking out for, things like that. And you can make compost from leaf mulch. All you need really is like a covering over it, like a piece of old carpet or a rug or something, and then give it sort of maybe 9 months, and you should have some really black, really, the darker the soil the better, basically. And if you think about it, it's like seeds go into the darkness, so the blacker the soil, and certainly that is the case um, in the Netherlands and on the sort of eastern side of England, like Norfolk and Lincolnshire. You've got the Spalding Flower Festival. The soil is almost black there because it is all sea minerals. It's very rich soil, so it's all agricultural land rather than animal pasture. And yeah, it's seawater is another good one if you've got access to it, and then like just saturate the ground, then cover it in straw, and then within the year you're good to grow, as it were. There's so many ways of doing this thing. It's like you can combine it with other things. So if you're foraging, I don't know, maybe for coal or something on the beach, then take some bottles, bring back some seawater, just start small, do maybe a couple of foot, give it a good soaking, let the sea minerals and the worms and everything, it'll all get sorted out, and hey presto, you've got really good growing soil then, and very little effort.
That's a good idea. We'll have to try that. And also, if you go around pine trees and dig about 8 inches or so, you can find really rich, dark soil.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say, there's also, you could do a thing called companion planting. So probably like with the environment you've got there in Portugal, say if you were growing sweet corn, well, you could grow squashes, and then the leaves would give a bit of shade to stop the roots of the sweet corn from being scorched by the sun. So that's another thing worth looking into. What sort of will encourage with companion planting? What things can you combine? And because nature doesn't do like this industrial farming. It doesn't grow in straight lines of all one thing. Naturally, it would be more like a meadow, and you'd have a huge variety of color and a huge variety of different things. So it's just sort of working in harmony with nature, not sort of trying to put humanity's poor attempt over the top of it. I mean, it comes to something when they're talking about, I forget which one of the Far Eastern countries, they've had an economic collapse because they've got rid of artificial fertilizer that's been banned for the environment and everything. It's like, well, what does that tell you about the soil? If you're having to put artificial fertilizer in, then that soil must be exhausted, and that must be down to the way it's been worked and not being given a chance to recover. So it's depleted of all its goodness. So I forget the guy's name who's there, who's doing the electrolytic compost.
Electroculture gardening, yeah, Murray.
Yeah, I mean that's another fantastic idea that's worth
yeah, it's
looking
going
at.
to be interesting.
Yeah, I was wondering as well, in the event of a lightning storm, would that pole attract the lightning, and would it work to the advantage of saving any sort of property damage? So it'd be an advantage from that way, but I don't know what effect would it have on crops and nature? Would it fry them or would it energize them?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean, that is a
I'm
question.
betting it would energize them because the electricity doesn't run right through the plants. It's just near the plant.
Yeah. Obviously, when you see these pictures of trees and the way that intense energy can split the bark, but the ground around it doesn't seem to be affected. So I'm taking from that if you had to put one of these poles up with like the earthing wire, as it were, it would probably disperse that energy and turn it to an advantage. Don't quote me on that because I'm just speculating.
Yeah, but that's what's fun, to experiment and speculate and see what works and see what doesn't, and share results and ideas and have fun with life and grow your own food where you know what it is. Even they tell you stuff's organic, they still spray it with organic pesticides, which some could say are worse than the regular ones, and just all the things they do, like you said, the artificial fertilizer. Here, when you grow your own stuff, it's all natural.
And it will taste different as well.
Oh yeah, well, yeah.
Because
Has your
it's not.
essence when you actually grow it, and then putting all your waste back into the garden like you're supposed to do, not into some public water system where they clean it and then drink it. How crazy is that? And that's supposed to be a civilized society that does that. I think I'll go back to the woods.
It's also with the food production in this material world, things are forced grown. They're not grown naturally because it's maximum profit, maximum shelf life. They're not grown for goodness. The only goodness they're grown for is the health of the profit margins. It's not the health of humanity. We got these ridiculous transatlantic journeys taking foods from one area of the world to another. And I mean, things like seasonal veg, that sort of has gone out the equation because it's like on the shelf in the supermarket all year round when it wouldn't naturally be that way. And that I would have thought would also have an effect. Even Rudolf Steiner was talking about the impact of the potato into Europe in the last 500 to 700 years. It was natural to North America. It was unheard of in Europe. So that would have had a total change on the diets of the European population with the introduction of the potato. It's pretty much in one form or another a sort of consistent part of of every sort of advertised meal, either as mashed potato, chips, jacket potato, or whatever. It's either that or rice or pasta. But you have to, I do wonder what the long-term effects of all these things are. So by not having a natural cycle of seasonal veg, what is that doing to our body?
Well, we go way worse than that with all the processed crap
Oh
we
yeah,
add. And
that's
going back
a
to the way they do agriculture, they spend so much effort and, you know, deplete land of nutrients to grow food to feed animals to then butcher the animals and eat them. That's another crazy thing that civilized society does.
well, the thing that the way I look at it, if you take an average sized cow and how long it would take to reach that sort of size, and then you imagine just one person, how quick you could eat that cow, and then multiply that by, well, it's supposed to be 7.5 billion or whatever, and it's like, well, then you need more cows. So to have more cows, you need more feeding, more animal feed. But they're very sneaky with this. It's not just knowing the ingredients. Some of the things are shifted and classed as manufacturing process, so they wouldn't be listed as an ingredient. I can't think of an actual example, but I know of one where they moved it in the equation so it doesn't show up as an ingredient. And I thought, what a sneaky
Right.
maneuver.
You soak it in some chemical, they don't have to put that, you know, because that's the preparation. So, you know, if they soak it in
Well, that
whatever.
then comes to I think it's a very good example with the onus is on us to just don't take the surface superficial answer. It's like, hold on a minute. We need to look a little bit deeper into this and go, what's behind that first level? It's sort of a tearing down of a veil, as it were, in this physical realm. So it's always be sort of watchful and mindful. It's like when they talk about free range eggs, apparently that can be these chickens are just let out for 5 minutes before they're slaughtered, or sorry, that's slightly wrong with it, but you know what I mean. With the free range chicken, they could spend their entire lives in sort of a factory environment, and 5 minutes before they're slaughtered, they're let out, and then that's classed as free range because they've had 5 minutes outside in daylight, probably traumatized if they've never seen it before. But I just can't take part in that. It's just so horrendous, and it's like, well, would I want to be a chicken and face a very short life and end up being guillotined or chopped to bits and minced up? No, thank you. So it's a sentient life form.
And for some reason, they're able to charge less per kilo for a chicken than they do for fruit. You know, how is that? You know, they have to feed the chicken, butcher it, pluck it, you know, whatever they do, and treat it with chemicals so it doesn't look putrefied like it really is, so people will actually eat it. And it's still less than fruit that somebody just picked off a tree.
That would be that's got to be the most natural way to have everything. It stands to reason. Things come they don't come in plastic with barcodes on them in a natural world. But it's a bit of a minefield to sort of navigate through, and at the same time as balance. It's like, don't beat yourself up if you're not at this precise moment in a position to sort of totally revolutionize your daily life and eliminate all these things, because they will. It takes time. So sort of go with the moment and enjoy every moment. Don't fret about, I haven't got here or I haven't achieved this. Yeah, have the goals, and this is where it's like, go to the end and remember the future. Feel like you've already got it. The more you feel it, the body or the subconscious can't tell what's real and what from the external and the internal thoughts. And this magical process happens that it does become real. A lot of people are going, no, that's, well, I can only give you my testimony, and I've tried this. I've listened to Neville Goddard. And I thought, wow,
Well,
this
and
is
that's
something.
exactly what happens when people look at a two-dimensional photo of something that stimulates them sexually, and you know, then they put themselves there, like they're actually there, just by putting themselves in that resonance and that in their imagination there.
Well, that proves that they can do it. They just need to transmute that blueprint into something that will actually benefit them more, rather than a very brief self-gratification, which probably, I don't know, an hour or whatever later, it's like, well, you, you're not satisfied. You want it again. And it sort of becomes like an addiction. Whereas by this thing with Neville Goddard, it's like, he's not, I mean, he passed in 1972. He's not trying to sell me anything. He's not getting me to subscribe to anything. I'm not going to pay out for anything. He's saying, test it for yourself. So I thought, that's an invitation I can't resist. I'm going to put this to the test and see if he's right. And yes, it works. Now, the more you do it, the easier it gets. The doubt and the fear starts to fall away the more you do it. And then you can start becoming a little bit more ambitious. This in some ways follows, or the material realm has followed this with like collectomania and things. And I've got to have this and I've got to have that. And I'm not happy with 2 of them. I've now got to have 4 or 6 or 8 or whatever. But this is non-physical, non-material, and it follows that same blueprint in a way. It's like, well, I've mastered doing this. Now let's see if I can push it a bit further. What else can I do with it? And then you can it's not just necessarily for yourself. You can put out these intentions and you can visualize things on other people's behalves. And if more than one does that, so if somebody says, I'm just not thinking of it as a really simple example. So they've got some sort of issue or a problem, and it's like, right, well, I'm not hearing that. I'm hearing later on in the future where they're telling me it's resolved. And so my intention and what I'm putting into this field is a desired outcome for them. Now, if they can do that as well, and if other people do that on their behalf, it happens even quicker.
I bet you that's
Magical.
what Eugene was doing unconsciously. Was he had already put himself, through all that, gotten through the authorities, and already here in Portugal, and he just kind of had that in his head, and he got there.
Oh, an easy example that you can see every day. Just ask yourself, if you see an authority figure in a uniform, do you become like the photon and you act slightly differently? That's an individual question everybody needs to ask themselves, because if you're like, oh shit, there's a policeman, I better not look suspicious. One, they probably think, oh, he's acting suspicious because he's over compensating. you're you're also putting out like a fear energy, which they're sort of trained to pick up on. Also, if you've got that fear thing and it's like, I hope they're not going to come up and ask me questions, well, that's exactly what is going to happen, because you put out such a strong energy of what you don't want. And we're all good at doing that. So it's mastering that, and it's like, I'm going to be invisible, they're not even going to see me. And that works. I don't know exactly, well, I don't know how it works. All I know is it's like you somehow you just like turn your frequency off to them and they can't tune into it, and they just leave you alone. Obviously, if you're doing something criminal, then it's not going to work. But if you're just going about,
Even then, you can do it. When back in the day when I used to be a shoplifter, that's what I would intend, was that I was invisible. But now I don't steal. I try not to lie. Every now and then I think I might tell a little white lie, but not very often. But yeah, I really don't. I used to steal mostly because when I grew up poor, so I started young. And then I used to be like, I never stole from people, but I would be like, might as well steal from these big places like Walmart or whatever, because they're ripping us off. I might as well just take something from
Yeah.
them. Who cares? But then, you're sending a message out that you have lack for one thing, because if you really want something, you can buy it. You will be provided. You have infinite abundance. You don't need to steal anything. And it's not a good energy to put out, in the ether. So, even though you're like taking from the billionaires or whatever, even if you're doing the Robin Hood thing, Robin Hood, there's better ways to do it, than just put negative energies out there. And it's also the whole lack, it's coming from a place of lack if you feel like you have to steal things.
It's
I don't know how I
also
got on that tangent.
it's also if with the implication of the way this world is with cameras everywhere, and certainly if you've got a bank card with one of those little magnetic chips in it, those metal chips, and probably mobile phones, if you're carrying those around, plus all the cameras everywhere, you're probably playing right in their hands because they're thinking, they really want this. We can play them. We can either set them up or we can lure them. Because this whole, if you look at the broadest picture with this whole external system, it's like a massive filter. So it's like you go into school and you're sorted into classes, and it's assessments and tests and scoring and segregating people into, right, those ones will go on to university, they run up a debt, so we've got them. Then and right across the whole spectrum, then you've got all you've got the adversary, all the adverts, and it's not just things you see in magazines or on hoardings. It can be shop windows, anything that is getting your attention and where you've got that feeling of, I must have that. But they're all adversaries. If you ain't got the money for it, well, don't have it. It's not worth they're not worth, these things are not worth getting in debt over. And they're all finite.
Yeah, I was mostly at the end, I was mostly like just stealing groceries at the grocery store, just the expensive stuff kind of things, It was just stupid. But yeah, it's stupid to do and it's not necessary, because if you really want something, you'll have it. And if it's just material things, that's really stupid, because yeah, it's
Well,
not worth the risk, and they don't bring you any happiness for very long. That's another thing I have a lot of experience with, is chasing the retail high, shopping all the time.
well, there's another perfect example where the material realm has used the same blueprint. They found a balance. So if you come at anything from a business perspective, it's like, right, I've got a product I want to sell. Now I don't want it to be a one-off sale. I want the customers to come back. So the product I make has got to be designed to fail after so many years, so they come back for another one. But I've got to find the balance so that product doesn't get a bad reputation and nobody buys it. So they follow that same blueprint of finding a balance, with a very different motive, of course, but you can see that same finding the balance. Again, that's an external mirrored reflection that's telling us to find the balance in ourselves. It's brilliant, really.
Yep, and balance is the key.
Yeah.
Balance, moderation. Yeah, that's how you get harmony. If you get excess in any direction, or if you have lack, you got to have that balance where it's just even. And really, you just want to go to that place where you don't need anything, really, just
Well,
to be.
it's working for me. I don't get an excess of anything. I get enough each day. The things are the sort of the basics that I need. and I'm happy with that. I was listening to a Manly P. Hall lecture on particularly the North American tribes and how within the tribe,
the Native Americans mythicism or whatever. That was such a great one. I'll put it in the
yeah,
comments
I
on
mean,
here. It was such a good lecture.
nobody owns anything. There is no incentive to try and gain anything personally. What I liked about it, they had a version that he was saying they had in one of the, I don't know if it was the Sioux, they had a system where you had like a congress of males, but they were picked by the females. And I thought that's a brilliant balance rather than all this one-sided patriarch nonsense. And there's a thing called woman's intuition. So if you look again at nature with the animal and birds and whatever, the male is the one that is dressed up in the bright colors. The male has to get the attention of the female and sell themselves as the most suitable. And then they're picked by the female. And it looks like this has been totally inverted in the Western world, but it's like no wonder they want to get rid of and persecute all these tribes, because they've got a harmonious way of living that takes all of this materialism out the equation. And what a beautiful life that would be. I'm not saying it's like, I certainly wouldn't want to be chasing buffalo across open plains, but and I certainly wouldn't want to be.
That's another good point when he brought up the buffalo, because remember he talks about if they killed an animal that they talk to it telepathically, and they explain that when they come back as an animal next time that they'll sacrifice themselves for that animal's tribe or whatever. And they didn't just go, they did it only out of necessity. They would prefer not to have hunted and, eaten meat or whatever, but they didn't have a choice. And they did it very sacredly, and they didn't go to the grocery store and buy it. That's for sure.
The thing is now, on top of that, it's been shown with Alaska, they've got like a dome, and they grow all the fruit and veg and supply the entire population of Alaska from there. So even in a cold climate, you can use the geothermics from, I think it's just under 5 foot below ground. You can bring the warmth up. You can use old car tires, rubber tires. They will hold the heat and then radiate out that heat. So it doesn't matter what the outside temperature is, you can still grow oranges and apples and things, even in the cold climates. It's not, you can't even, I wouldn't even say it's even technology as such. You really just want like a lean-to, just like a wall and a south-facing sort of glass panels or something, and or at least try it anyway. But there's plenty of videos. I can't think of a channel off the top of my head, but there are channels that show all these sort of things, and it's perfectly possible to do. So it doesn't matter what the climate is. And it's just like, oh, that's another challenge. And it's like, yeah, I've seen the concept of it. I want to try it myself now.
I'm having to remove a XXX site from the chat.
Oh, one
Hi,
of those again.
Tabitha's in the chat.
Sorry?
Tabitha Cole, y'all need to check out her YouTube channel. She is a beaming light.
Excellent.
And I see her going really far. She is caught on to creating her own reality.
Excellent. Well, it sounds, when you first hear of it, it does sound incredible. But I was thinking also, with this micro and macro thing. So what if this, call it Kundalini rising, spiritual awakening that we're going through, what if Mother Earth is doing exactly the same thing? Because it seems we're not separate from anything. Certainly the physical bodies. I mean, if you look at the way it talks in Genesis, it says man was formed from the dust, from the earth. So the physical, I feel that's talking about the physical bodies. So they are a part of earth and are definitely have a connection and an interaction. We're not separate from anything. We may be a spirit in a physical body, but while we're in a physical body, where it's to have the interaction in this realm. And I feel if we're radiating out energy on a certain frequency, the more of us that are doing it, this is where we're also helping to change this imbalance of earth. And I was listening to Adrian Elise, the Gaia Daily, and the way she talks about it on there, it's like, this sounds a familiar pattern. It's like, oh no, you don't want to be using your power. You know, that'd be dangerous. Leave it to us. We're look after you. And it's like, well, that almost sounds like, trust me, I'm from the government. And I thought, yeah, there's like a macro message in this to the micro that's going on in us. And it's like, oh, this is getting interesting. And it sort of confirmed after my sort of initial shock of there's no insects about, or very few, and then having this like communication with these trees, and the message I got back was, there's nothing to worry about. Nature is well aware, and it's just when the conditions are right, it will sort of spring into action. Vapor canopy comes to mind. So I've sort of seen it where the trees will suddenly almost sprout overnight with this change in the environment. And of course, if they suddenly grow, think about what the roots are going to do and how far they're going to go. And think of close proximity of buildings and things in towns, and how those buildings then might become structurally unsound and no longer fit for habitation because they're dangerous, because they'll be taken back by nature. And if you don't believe me, just look at South America and all these ancient civilizations that are sort of they're still finding in these rainforests, and you can work out roughly the ages of some of these trees to know that these things haven't taken a very long time to happen, but they're soon taken back by nature. And no matter what man does, I mean, you've only got to look in towns and things, you'll see weeds growing in the gutters, you'll see cracks in pavements and there, but something will push through those flagstones or that tarmac. It is not an obstacle to nature. So if one of these towns in the UK was abandoned and left for 10 years and you came back and looked at it, I think you'd see a much greener town centre than it could ever be done by town planners. And it'll all be done by nature. So I know which side I want to pick.
Right, and that's true. I mean, just we've been having more rain than usual, and it's so green. Everything's growing so fast. And guess what? Tabatha has joined us. Hey, Tabatha.
Hi. Hi.
Hi. You could go on camera if you want. I just don't have the bandwidth.
I don't know how to do that.
So there's probably a little video with the line through it, but it's cool. Whatever. But I love your YouTube channel. You're just so positive and so mystic, and there's no stopping you. I can see that.
That's awesome.
So,
oh man.
are you looking to get in an intentional community as well?
Yep. Yeah.
Whereabouts?
I don't know yet. Like, golly, anywhere probably.
Right. You're in the States, right? I think you were driving to Tennessee or something.
Yeah, I'm in Tennessee right now. There's mountains. It was wild. I used to be terrified to drive here, but I almost went over a cliff the other day and that changed everything.
You have to face your fears, and now you don't have it, right?
Exactly. And I've got like a U-Haul attached to my car, and that used to terrify me. But man, there's nothing. When you've got the oversoul back in you, it's like,
There you go.
nothing can stop you, right?
Right. So yeah, James, you said that you have two kind of intentional communities getting started, one in UK or Scotland, right? And one in Canada.
Yeah,
What part of
that's the
Canada is it? Quebec?
sorry.
What part of
Um,
Canada?
yeah, it's between Quebec and Montreal, so it's a nice sort of. It's 2 hours away from Montreal, so it's an elderly population that, as they're sort of dying off, because there's no drive-throughs or anything there. The local population are adamant they don't want any commercial nonsense like that there.
Yeah.
So anybody that wants the city life, they're going to find that boring. There's nothing to do. So it will keep them away naturally without having to put out a negative force. And I'm watching this unfold. It's fantastic. It's like the way is being, talk about follow the yellow brick road. It's brilliant. So, because I feel it's also, don't put, I'm going to take a blueprint which the material system uses. You don't put all the eggs in one basket. So in the way Jason talks about it with the Archaics channel, where different civilizations or cultures went underground, some may not have survived, but safeguard safety in numbers. So the more intentional communities we've got, the better it is. So yeah, I think it'll be, I'm really looking forward to this and what's coming. It talks in Revelation 12:1. Well, 12 into 1 is your 13. April the 15th next year, Venus with the sun and the moon at the feet. It's going to show in the sky, and it's like, wow, that's it's like a prophesied sign.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
I'm not Christian, but to me, the Bible is like, that's that handbook of this computer program. That's telling you the object of the game. And it's still, if you read it as an internal dialogue, it works. There's no controversy. What has been done with it in the external and the mishmash of it, that's relevant. But it's, how does it serve me? I mean, the most honest thing about it is open any Bible and it'll say this version or that version. Well, they are versions of the truth.
Yes.
So yeah, I was also thinking, with the new world actually turning out to be the old world, I can't help but thinking Oregon. I'm wondering if the sort of cradle of civilized humanity in its present form started in Oregon from that. I've got nothing much to go on at all on that. It's just playing with the words and just hearing Origin, Oregon, allowing for the vowel shifts. And it's like,
And Oregon, like your organs. Like there's so much fun there.
yeah, oh yeah, of course, organs, yeah. I missed that one completely. Yeah, there must be something in that.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it's clear that you can't trust anything in external. It's like, when did photoshopping first start? Well, Mind Unveiled channel shows that photoshopping has been there since the word go with photography. When they can, I remember these seaside postcards, and in the 1970s, and how this almost artificial blue sky, and it's like, well, they all look the same. It's all the same shade of blue, and it's like, well, now it makes sense. They're all copy and paste, and it's like overlaying of making a composite.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. Any of the external, but I'll have to go with the feeling on it.
Yeah, fakery is nothing new. They've been trying to fool us here, there, and everywhere for a long time, but I love how
Yep.
so many people are ready just to get back to basics and keep it simple. We've realized chasing all this material crap and eating who knows what we're eating half the time anymore, and even if you do try to eat healthy stuff, it's sprayed and it comes from, like you said, they have to treat with artificial fertilizers because the soil is so leached. So yeah, I'm so excited. It's so, I've wanted since I ended up in this place where I'm at magically. That was a whole nother magical event. I always wanted to try to get an intentional community started here, and now it's actually happened. We got 3 members now. So, things are starting to happen. And I like it too that Eugene is 22 and male, and I'm almost 62 and female. So you got that whole range there to work with, and it's not just all young people like some intentional communities. I won't name any names, but it's whoever wants to get away. Like I would have loved to have this opportunity when I had to move into my tent last summer. I would have moved into it here, but and it was fine where I did live in it, but it was, it's cool. But here I would have had showers every day and water easily and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just great to have those modern amenities and be around like-minded, like-hearted people working
Yeah.
together. And before you know it, you'll be growing so much food that you can help so many other people. Eugene is all about the Dr. Sebi food list, and he's making all these dishes with
Mhm.
only foods from Dr. Sebi's list that are all mucus-free, alkaline dishes. So he wants to do a little donations restaurant at some point or whatever. So yeah, it's just so cool to get. This is just with the 3 of us here. Murray's always, he's the #1 handyman around here, and it's just really cool. It's fun, and it kind of took me out of my comfort zone of just having the life of leisure, doing what I want all day, and I knew it would, and I wanted that because there's more to life than laying around doing what you want all day.
Mhm.
Do what you want all day and not lay around.
And feel so much better afterwards. Like,
Exactly, because you don't feel good if most of the time when you get that lifestyle, it just becomes Groundhog Day. And so many people, when they retire, they're used to working 8 or more hours a day or whatever, and then all of a sudden they
yeah.
have all the time, especially if they haven't done their shadow work. At least
Mm.
with your shadow work, you're okay, with being
Yeah.
by yourself and not having,
Y-
stimulation all the time. But if you're not, man, that could why so many people just,
Yeah.
don't do well
It
after they retire. So this is a good opportunity for people who are, retiring to join these communities instead of waiting until they go into the retirement home when their family's sick and
yeah.
they don't want them to live with them or whatever. So the paradigm shift has happened, and we get to each make our own little paradigm shift. And it's just a really cool
Yeah.
thing. And it's so great we have the internet so we can find each other. That's just amazing. It amazes me.
And with that shadow work, man, if you don't do that, you don't like being in your own skin. But once you start doing that shadow work and start getting that good feeling in your body, you're like, oh my God, I don't need drugs and alcohol anymore. I feel good in here. Like, I want to stay here for a while. And then you just keep doing more of that shadow work. It feels like crap when it's coming up. But man, if you can tell yourself, I can handle this feeling of crap, then that good feeling happens right behind it because it's pushing it up, pushing it up. That Shakti, it's pushing it up. Feels good in my skin right now. Tell you what.
You've got a material sort of presentation as well. If you think about no matter what the mineral that's been extracted, how many mines are there around the world? So the world has been turned into basic like Swiss cheese, full of holes. It's dangerous. Well, like Julia was saying on the video today about relationships, if you're looking for that significant other, well, why are you looking for a significant other? There's like an emptiness, and I think of the word mind, and then think of like Earth has been mined. It's had the minerals taken out and nothing put back in. And of course, it can become dangerous and nothing can collapse. And then if you think of that in the internal sense, if we're left full of holes, well, you can fill the holes it just by changing the perception. It's not you're alone, you're all one. It's just they've taken one of the L's out and joined the two words into. They've done the two into one in the word, but it's having that feeling of all one, because I can sit happily on my own. Well, if I go in town within seconds, I'm not on my own. I've got 6 or 7 pigeons. It's like, oh, he's brought us food. Oh, it's brilliant. They eat out of my hand, and it's fantastic. And they just sit there, even if, when they're not eating, they just stay with me, and it's beautiful. So it's a nice relationship. But of course, this world is a double-edged sword, because if I move from here, I'm going to have to leave a few people behind. But beauty of the internet, it's not goodbye forever. And their experiences, and it's like I've got to take the next step. I'm ready for the next chapter. I've put the intention out there. It's unfolding beautifully, and it's like I can use this time. And yeah, life is just absolutely beautiful. Don't get me wrong, there's days where I'm faced with things that are presented to us like that looks like a little bit of a concern, but then I stop myself and think, what are you worrying about? You know it's going to work out. And sure enough, it does. Today I went into town. The mission was I need coffee, I need some porridge, and I need some milk. Well, I got donations. I sit there, I've got color card readings I can do for people as well. So, and I'm giving to the pigeons. So yeah, I take advantage. I mean, the best thing about it was I woke up this morning, I thought, oh, blue skies and sunshine, I'm out there. I'm making the most of that. Blue skies and sunshine in November in Scotland are a rarity. Trust me on that one.
I think y'all stole ours because we've been having a lot of rain and clouds lately, but man, it sure is making everything green. It's like it's the pre-vapor canopy, but cooler. And
That's
the skies aren't as purple yet.
the sort of nature responding, and it's watering the ground in readiness for the growing. You see, the work's sort of being.
Totally, it's going to be amazing. Yeah, it already is. The stuff we have here. Yeah.
Well, it's that thing when 2 or more gather, where you've got 3 of you there already. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool, and it's really good dynamics between us too. Eugene's an amazing 22-year-old, but sometimes I forget because he's so tapped in and he's so wise. But he's only 22. You know, he was born in 2000. So you put that in perspective because I'll be like, I'll mention a lot of YouTuber people, a lot of content creators that I've followed over the last couple of decades, right? And he hasn't heard of any of them, right? But he knows a lot of the same stuff that I've learned from those people. So he's all about he's a good example of how it works when you actually tap into the Akashic records and you get the answers that way. And that's what Ken Wheeler just did to discover his amazing equation, which links light and matter. He has an equation with the proton is the frequency times the circumference cubed of, I can't remember what the circumference is of. It's like a torus, I guess, but it's just amazing. It's real simple. It's like E equals mc squared, which Einstein stole. But he did that by he said he just really wanted to know it, and he just kind of tapped in, and it came to him. And he said that's how all his information on magnetism came to him too. And a lot of people have probably heard of Ken Wheeler, Theoria, Apophosis, I think is how you say his channel. And some people don't like him. He calls himself the fat tattooed monkey boy or something like that. But he has some wisdom that that makes he didn't get it from books. And there's ways to do that and more. And it's just like all these kind of abilities that we have like that, like manifesting. If you just say something now, it manifests, that's why you got to really focus on what you want and only think about what you want and only say what you want because everything's amping up. People are tapping in easier now. I guess it really is the end times, then time will tell.
It's the speed that the manifestations are coming like a boomerang as well. The one I can readily think of was the lady that had that can of paint, and I couldn't sort of really move from where I was sitting, and I was thinking, I hope she gets some help. And within a couple of seconds, this guy said to her, would you like a hand with that? So it's like, excellent. It's like I've sort of put out an intention and the universe has responded to that. I've not asked for anything for myself. It's on behalf of someone else. And so anybody walking past, if they're limping or whatever, I'm not seeing them limping. I'm seeing them as healthy. Whether they work against that, I can't change their mind. I can't change their mindset. But at least I can put an intention out that will sort of radiate out. We're basically magnetic. Yeah, Ken Wheeler was describing it like pearls joined with a string. So I think of that Mary Celeste story, and I hear the word celestial, and it's like, well, what if those people, that crew on that ship, what if it appears like they were just vanished to us because we're on a different frequency? What if they have created or stepped into a very similar reality and they've changed their frequency and they appear to have disappeared out of this one? Because it's like if you're tuned into a frequency like the external world of wars and things and feeling fear, well, that's what you're going to get. But if you change you tune to a different frequency, that all fades away. It loses all power. And it's like, well, what war? I don't see any war. All I hear is rumors of war. I can't go and verify whether they're real or not. And even if I had the resources and the means to get there, they'd probably say, oh, you can't go there because it's a war zone. So I wouldn't be able to check anyway. They've covered all bases.
What kind of wars do we have now? I mean, Russia is giant. If they wanted to take over Ukraine, I mean, they could have done it by now. Really? Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just all a show. And that's what you have to do. You just have to treat it as a show. You can't save, people that you think are suffering or that appear to be suffering. And really, we only render our reality streams when we're observing something. So none of that really exists anyway, unless you're observing it, especially for you. So really, the only thing that exists is what you can observe directly. And that's really all you need to focus on.
Well, it's laughable.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that was it. Like, I'm good. Like, exclamation point behind all of what y'all are saying. Yes, 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 yes. I feel that in my own existence. I talk to people that come to me. Like, that's the thing. It's your experience. What are you experiencing? Because you can't be in my body experiencing me, and I can't be there experiencing you. Not like this. Not like this. Like, maybe there's a way, but I'm not doing that because right now I'm only working on this. Because every time I work on this, everything out here corresponds. It starts to change and shift. And man, this is magic. This is so cool. Like everything y'all are saying, exclamation point. I agree. Oh my gosh. Yes, that's it.
I watched a funny, video, and it was sort of saying about that little bit of, it's still part of Russia next to just south of Lithuania. And then they're speculating there's this corridor from Belarus, so it would isolate the Baltic states. And I thought, oh, Polish corridor and isolating something. I thought, that sounds like a repeat of a story that was 70 odd years ago. But now they've reversed the things. I thought, oh, I'm fed up of watching repeats. It's like, that's not a very new story. It's like, I'm not interested in that, and I've got better things to do. But I just thought that was amusing. It's like, oh, I can see where they're following a script again. But then I think, well, the thing is with all of this, turn it round. It's like, it seems like there's this elaborate scheme from even before you're born, and the clamping of the umbilical cord, and then it's like everything seems set against us. So the question is, why? What is it that inside us they don't want us to know? And it's like, cheers, you've just given me the answer. It's like we have this power, and it's right in the center of the heart. It's a tiny little white star with an intense heat, and it radiates. It goes with what Ken Wheeler says about the magnet. The smaller the dielectric center, the greater its output. So we're just going to find that magnet in our heart, and it works. Yeah, you've got beautiful energy coming off. It's like, whoa, sunshine.
Thank you.
It's dark
Yeah, she
here
had
now.
some great stories, like the guy at Goodwill, the older man took a picture. Yeah. She just beams, you know. She's a sunbeam. You know, you're welcome to come to Portugal, Tabitha, anytime.
I want to
But,
learn the language because I like the idea of being in Portugal. That
yeah,
sounds
you don't even
so
have to learn
cool.
the language, because we're gonna make it where we only have one language again. We're getting rid of this whole Tower of Babel BS.
Thank you. The language
Going
of
to
the heart.
English wins. Sorry, everybody. English wins. And it is the language of the EU. So, in this area right here, you don't really. There's people that have lived here 20 years that still don't speak Portuguese. So it's all good. But
That's
yeah,
amazing. Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to talk my sister into coming with me.
right. So yeah, some people are gonna make these bold moves, and it's so worth it, because these jobs that we have to end up taking, and even with me, I was a teacher, and I had a lot of experience, but when I decided I didn't want to go back in the classroom anymore after I lived in Prague for about 3 years, over 3 years, almost 4 years, and I came back to the States, and I just wanted to kind of work tutoring and outside of all the teaching, and so I would only get like $15 an hour, sometimes even less, you know. So it's just ridiculous how little they try to pay people, and people can't even afford to get anything done with what they're giving you, and you're just making these people richer, and you can't even make ends meet, and your life's just stressed out, and then in your spare time you just want to escape reality because your life sucks instead of enjoying life. And there's so much to enjoy, and it just goes back to getting back to basics and making it simple again.
That reminds me of the Hopi prophecy on Prophecy Rock, right? Like we're going back to the earth and we're going to go all the way around the rock. Like we don't have to go up that little jagged friggin' stairway to Crapville. Like, I'm going to Hopi Prophecy Rock and going around the rock, baby.
It's this whole system programs us to have that feeling of, what can I do? I can't change anything. Where the opposite is actually true. It's just the only reason it doesn't work is while we feel that we can't do it. And while we hold that feeling, of course it won't work. It's and then there's I'm gonna have to criticize the whole law of attraction. That it's like, well, think about it. The law of attraction. Well, that means you haven't got it. If you're still trying to bring it towards you, then you haven't got it. So it's the law of assumption. It's feel like you've got it, and you only got to look back over your life. What can you draw on? You can draw the thing you come away with is experience. So you could go back to the earliest memory of your birthday, that present you're going to get, or Christmas when it's exciting as a child, and That moment when you're just about to open that present and it is that thing you really wanted, that anticipation, if you can hold that feeling and then put it into a present situation, because it's all about being present anyway, and hold that feeling, this magical thing happens inside these physical bodies where the serotonin, the melatonin, and everything all rebalances itself. You recalibrate yourself, and it's like, whoa! And before you know it, you have got it. And it is just a case of start with something really simple, like finding a feather. Most people have probably touched one, and it's like, you know what it feels like, you know the approximate weight. I mean, I've done it twice with mobile phones from nothing, not the money to get one, and then within 6 days I've got a mobile phone. I mean, how cool is that? Because I drew on the experience, I know what it feels like, I know the approximate weight, I can visualize seeing it as a black phone, and sure enough, that's what I got. And it's like, I don't know when it's going to happen, but I just
He
hold.
looks like a wizard, and he is a wizard. He doesn't just play one on YouTube. He is really a wizard.
That's brilliant. Yes, that's brilliant. I feel like we're all Harry Potter, but better. Like we're more than that. We're more than even that.
Well, this is the other thing. We're taught to feel separation. We're taught, and that's like if you're seeking that significant other, then that sort of feeling, oh, I'm alone. So you've got that. You can sort of see it from that perspective, but we're not. So it's not looking for the one. The one is inside all of us. I've speculated on the word hydrogen. Well, you've got hydra, hydro, hide, so it's implying hidden. It's a hidden one. And then Rogan means red from an Irish surname, so it implies, and it is in the blood. The heart does not pump. It's a regulator that it'll open up valves. So when you need more adrenaline, it will let everything. But it's through the oxygen, the breath of life, that then interacts with the blood, and you've got this magical process. All these, I think it's 100 transition metals being picked up, deposited in the material world. It's amusing in a way. It's like mineral trains. They're depositing minerals from one place to another. And I thought they're copying the body. Everything in this material reality is copying us. It's amazing to see. We're in Egypt. People don't believe it when I say that, but well, just look at something like McDonald's. There's somebody at the top. There'll be area managers or whatever below them, or this board of directors, and you've got this tiered system. Is that not a pyramid? You've got a heavy bottom of a workforce, and the corporate world is all pyramids. They might be invisible to the naked eye, but they're definitely there. And right in the middle of the word Egypt is the word jip, which means to steal, theft. It's so it's like energy, theft, and T I take as being the I and its highest level. So the thy, it's a symbol. T is the creator. So when the I is at its highest level and it's balanced, we are that T. It's time for T, energy, theft of the creator. So we move out of Egypt, we move out of this material world and into more, we recreate Eden. And it's happening. And we're doing, if you think about it, like nature. If you've got intentional communities, they're sprouting up everywhere. Well, what does nature do? Like seeds, things just sprout up all over the place. So why not? I think it's magical.
Yeah, it's time. It's like we're taking our lives back, because before it was just, oh, you work for somebody for 30 or 35 years and then you get a Rolex watch or whatever. I never understood how somebody could work at one company for 30 plus years. I've never been that type of person that could stay at a job for too many years. It was the same thing. So I don't know. Those people, I guess I admire them to be able to do that. But Yeah, that's not what life's supposed to be like. That's not how it goes at all. So we gotta get it back to the way it's supposed to be and really enjoy life. And that's, if you're living in communities with like-minded, like-hearted people, growing your own food and eating, keeping your body alkaline and, just helping each other. And yeah, it's just it changes everything. You're not gonna have all the issues that people have with depression and anxiety and addiction, all these things, and get into pharmaceuticals, and then they have to treat this, and that has side effects, and you gotta have a treatment for that. Most people who have a prescription have 5 of them because all the side effects from the prescriptions. And it's like on the books, it's the third leading cause of death is medical mistakes, which means it's the first leading cause of death. So stay away from allopathic medicine, that's for sure. And all that takes is getting back to nature. Anytime you have any serious symptoms, all you need to do is get your body clean, detox, go on a grape juice fast and do some dry fast in between and get you some cannabis oil, and you'll clear up whatever it is. And that doesn't matter what it is, it'll fix everything because it's all just symptoms of having your body very acidic, and not just what you put in it too. It's what's coming into you from everywhere, and it's how your energy field gets acidic or basic too. So we got to get back to that. And if you have to work in that 9 to 5 grind or whatever all the time, you're going to have a very acidic energy field.
Well,
I look at
guys, I gotta go. I've got my stepdad to visit. I gotta go put my healing hands all over him. And I'm gonna help my sister first. She had surgery on her shoulder, so I'm gonna help her loosen up her shoulder a little bit. And then we're gonna be going up and down the mountain. So I love y'all
All
so
right.
much. I
We'll
had
check
such a
out
good
Tabatha Cole's YouTube
time.
channel, and I'll definitely put it in the description in the
Oh,
comments. And thanks for joining us. Yeah,
I freaking love you, Julia and
love you
Wizard
too,
James.
Tabatha. And we'll be watching your videos for sure.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
well, she's
Yeah.
definitely a ray of sunshine. Fabulous, really good energy.
Yeah. And a
I was
lot of energy, she's just like beaming. Yeah. If you check out her channel, you'll see she's just, yeah, a real light.
I I, while I was out today, I thought, talk about circular reasoning. There's a Christmas tree up, and it's got the red and white decorations, and it's apparently from this particular type of hallucinogenic mushroom in Europe. And obviously, the putting up a tree is a sort of Germanic thing. And then if you go with the Christian thing, it's like, oh, astrology's evil. And it's like, well, hang on a minute, you've got 3 wise men that are following a star. Is that not astrology? And then it's all for a good cause, of course. It's to raise money for this or for that. And it's like, yeah, that's a registered charity. You might think you're doing good, but are you really doing good? Because you really know that money's going to go for, and not only that, you're dealing with an outcome. Who caused the problem in the first place? Why is there like a homeless problem or a need for a um, children's cancer or leukemia specialist equipment? Well, that's not tackling the source. And that material world is giving a very twisted, mirrored thing saying, go to the source. Well, where is the source? It's inside us. So wherever you look, if you're just observant and see that external world, and it's a mirror and what it's presenting to you, because it's all a reflection of us. I mean, in this material realm, in the ego and the vanity, is look in the mirror and brush your hair and present yourself in this sort of this falsehood to the outside world of how you want the world to see you. But when you look in the mirror, in the real mirror, which you can't see, but you can see the reflection of that mirror in that external world. If you look carefully, you can see what it's really saying. And I find that amazing. It's like well, this changes the whole concept. What really is good and evil? It might have a perceived intention that is self-serving for a very few, but within that, there is also a presentation that can be untwisted that actually reveals something that is of great benefit. And it's like, and I find this is happening more and more. This is what I'd say is the tearing of the veil, the Toto, which is the lapdog, the gut feeling. It's Toto in the Wizard of Oz that goes and pulls that curtain away and shows it's not some terrifying wizard. That's just an illusion. It's somebody operating controls and things, and there's nothing terrifying about it at all. It was all an illusion in that Technicolor dream. But then when Dorothy wakes up, when she realizes there's no place like home, go within yourself, in other words, she goes back into that black and white world. And my experience is, well, I look around outside of myself, nothing's changed. Absolutely nothing has changed. The only thing that has changed is my perception of it. And that has changed how I feel about it. It's changed my internal feelings. I feel more relaxed, more calm, more balanced. So I'm going to keep walking this path. It's working. And between us, we will start to change this world. Whether it does become a split and there is another earth comes out of it, splits like a cell, and sort of one becomes two, but on a different frequency, but almost identical as far as the nature goes. That's something I think is worth pursuing anyway.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we are manifesting and now we know it. And it's really interesting because I was just saying that we haven't really been aware that we are creating our reality for that long in history. Like our parents didn't ever try to think like this. Nobody ever told them that they created their reality, right? And Jason was just saying in his live that it's only been really came from the Golden Dawn since that era that they started studying and stuff like that. And that was from the 1890s that he said 90% of this kind of stuff wasn't even looked into until that recent. So this is something really recent that we're getting to get back in touch with these abilities. And it's, it's the time. This is the time to really get that magic whipped up and show what we can do. And we're just getting started. We're just getting started. And when you can feel it, you just know, like you said, James, you put yourself in that future place where it's already there and we're already there. We're just waiting for, time to catch up with us.
This is it. Well, if you think about it, an intention goes out and it's like a spring, but then from that intention, the material sort of catches up. We're sort of creating time, and we're collapsing time and space all at the same time. Yeah, that's interesting as well. Rudolf Steiner, I believe he started doing his talks and lectures round about the 1890s, and you can see this sort of pattern with the New Thought writers. Joseph Benner is another one. He wrote anonymously, and there's quite a few people who've said his one book. I think it's the Keys to the Kingdom. You can find it on YouTube. It's about 10 hours in total, but it's 10 hours well spent. And a lot of commentators have said if God or the Creator had written a book, it's being channeled through this Joseph Benner. And yeah, I have to agree with that perspective as well. But you've got this progression. You've had, like, earlier in the 19th century, you've had the Schopenhauer, Helena Blavatsky, and so on, and this gradual progression. But then you've really from 1902. That's when it's really started to sort of kick in. You've got names like Alan Watts, Manly P. Hall, Rudolf Steiner. Some people will be triggered and say, oh, at least two of those were Masons. Well, so what? There's truth in everything. You can't have a lie built on nothing. There has to be a foundation of truth. It's just discernment, reading between the lines with all of these things. And when you can listen to different YouTube channels which are coming from completely different perspectives, and you can still hear that same message coming through, that it's all pointing in that same direction. And it's like, well, it feels right, so I'm going with it. To be honest, if I'm feeling it, then I'm creating it. So it wouldn't matter if it wasn't right or not, but because we have the power to create from our feeling. So we manifest it. And I feel this is also what this material world is doing. They're feeding or offering a script, which a lot of people are buying into. So of course they're feeling from that script. So they're manifesting, and people wonder why the weather's so erratic. I can see why. And I do feel that that is collective human energy that is being manipulated, and why we do have these strange weather phenomena. I feel it is humanity doing it. They're not lying when they're saying, oh, it's mankind that's doing this. But it's a half truth. It's mankind that's doing it because they've been given a script and they're falling for it. We're caught in the crossfire of it. But we can get out of it by detaching from it, switching off from it, not focusing our attention upon it, and focusing, going inward, dealing with our internal structure, recalibrating ourselves by doing that shadow work. That is fundamental to this. It's the key part. It's never mind looking at the external world and trying to fit the puzzle pieces together. I mean, Jason's done that. You don't need to do that. And again, it doesn't matter if it's 100% right, but it is self-proving on the mathematics. And I would also say, bear in mind, though, that the history and the mixing up of things, that must have a source to it. And I feel that is in that spiritual history, which is basically the handbook with the object of the game, if you want to see it as a simulation. Again, it's like, don't be triggered by the words. They're just ways of trying to describe what you can't really describe. But biocomputer or anything, whatever you want to call it. But whatever this is, this experience, it is an experience, and it does seem to be that is what we're here for, to learn from the experience. To maybe, I think it was Robert Collier featured on the Brian Scott channel in a chapter from a book. It's like you're taking something to, like a relay race, to pass on to the next stage of the game, as it were. And it's like, well, I'll go with that. That makes sense to me. So I'm here. So now I want to have a nice experience here. I don't want to have a horrible experience, and I don't want to have an experience where I'm creating horrors around me either. And I don't want to be breaking universal law and inflicting harm on others. So I've then got to equate that all with inside myself, recalibrate, reconfigure myself. And it's an ongoing process, but it's definitely worth doing.
Yeah, it's just it's not even difficult. It's just doing it and getting to that spot and starting to enjoy this experience. And that's a great way to describe it. You know,
Well, if
what is life? Life is experience. What's the purpose of life? To experience, right? That's the purpose. It's just to experience. And everything's a lesson. There are no mistakes. There are no failures. There's just lessons. And sometimes the lessons are easy and sometimes they're not so easy, but they're all good in the end.
well, if we scrape this down to the bare facts, in the material sense, you're born. You've got a finite number of years, and there will come a point where you die. There's no getting round that. Some have tried, and it doesn't matter how many billions you throw at it. They don't. Oh, it's not, as far as I can see, possible. okay, there is speculation and things on a lot of these conspiracy channels, but I run with the idea that most of us are born, we have a finite number of years, and they will end up being burnt or put in a wooden box, and that's it. So, if even if it's that, I still want to have a pleasant experience, but I know it's more than that. So that doesn't even bother me. But I do want to consider, even in terms of like family history, 10 generations ago did not would never have known of me, would never have conceived the idea of me. I'd be some sort of unknown quantity sometime in the future that may or may not happen. But I also then reflect of what I do and 10 generations on, and not just bloodline family I'm talking here. I'm talking about what footprint do I want to leave? What carbon footprint do I want to leave in this reality? What legacy do I want to leave? So I'm looking very much to the future with all of this, and trying to be the best version of myself that I possibly can be and change this world. And I've been told that none of us can change the world. Well, I see that as a challenge now. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't seem likely, but I'll give it a go because I know it's not just down to me. There's many more of us, and it's a growing number. And I'm seeing this shift, this change. So I'm very positive about the entire future, no matter what the external realm is presenting. There's certainly no evidence of any of it around me, not in my sort of daily world. All these things that are broadcast, and it is cast broadly, but is it
But
real? Is it true?
according to a lot of simulation theorists, including Tom Campbell, he says, unless it's being observed, it's not even rendered. So unless there's a war and right in front of you where you can actually observe it, it's not happening. And he says, like, if you're not listening to your heartbeat, then you don't even have a heart. You don't have a brain in there if you're not trying to do an EKG or whatever that's called. So yeah, it's just everything has to be rendered before it's there anyway. And our world is just our vicinity, and that's what we have to focus on. And again, that spreads out, that's our biofield overlaps with more and more and more, and it goes on and on. And the more good that's out in the ether, the better. And yeah, I don't know if, since there's so many people that don't seem to be real people, NPCs or Walking Dead or both or whatever, I don't see the whole world becoming an Eden, but I see it get to a point where to you the whole world is. And the world changes all the time anyway, so the world is going to be changed, and you can help direct it the way you want to go, especially your part of the world. And that's all you really need to focus on, because if you try to do the whole thing, I mean, come on, that's just impossible. We don't even know what it is, really. What is the world? And we don't even know how many people there really are in this realm. And then we have the disembodied beings, and then we have so many dimensions that we don't even notice, because we have our central nervous system filtering everything out so we can actually function here and be dense like we are and feel like we're solid, even though we're really not, because everything is 99.99999% empty space. So yeah, reality is not what you think. And that's
Well,
so
what
cool that we know all this stuff. And just a couple of generations back, they didn't have the opportunity to learn all this kind of stuff and then work with it. I'm just so grateful to be here right now at this time.
Oh, it's funny you should say about the atom. What if we take that analogy of the solid part? is right in the middle and it's tiny. Now, there's things like synchronized thought, and I've definitely had this experience where I've published a video, and another channel I subscribe to will have simultaneously put a video up, and it's pretty much talking about the same thing. It's like what is called synchronized thought. So the way I describe us, we're like inverse Russian dolls, because this is a realm of duality. It's a realm of mirrors and illusions and things. So our physical body is probably like that dielectric, because we do die and we're electrical thoughts, but we're also magnetic. So our etheric and astral body and our eye organization will be like this toroidal field, this aura that goes out from us. So it's like, well, how far can we generate outward? And it's like, well, where did the idea of Wi-Fi and everything really come from? What is it based on in the unseen, in the spiritual? Because it seems that everything in this material realm, one, is based on us.
That would be telepathy.
Yeah, yeah. Instead of television, telepath. And of course, when it's at such a level, it would probably be where we're totally transparent. So there would be no sort of saying one thing but with an agenda, and you'd probably hear the thoughts rather than the actual words. It wouldn't be a disturbance in the ether. And it also, what's just come into my head at the end of the Neville Goddard lectures, when he says, let us go into the silence for 2 minutes. And it's like, yeah, you think if we were in a world where we're communicating in telepathy, it would be silent. There'd be no babble, no disturbance of the ether, with all our opinions and personal ideas and theories and system programming and all the rest of it, all the clutter, all the noise would the interference pattern would vanish. And that's probably what the interference pattern is. It's a projection into this, whatever this reality is, that is then working through, well, how many levels of NPC are there? I mean, it may be just presentations of this external world. So people will observe things and they're like the photon, so they react different and behave different. So I feel there is even truth in that whole thing about that double slit experiment from the point of view of human behavior. And double slit, well, we've got two eyes, so there's slits in the head. So there seems to be a grain of more than a grain of truth in all that. But it's like, well, how far can we extend our toroidal fields? How far can we project out our energy? And if the strongest energy is love, that must come from the heart center. Heart, earth, hearth, it's all the same word anyway. So I feel that is the answer. And yeah, we're definitely changing this world. But of course, there's so much goes on in the unseen. If you think about it, you're taking a journey, and there's lots of, everything is potential. There's a potential that you're going to get there at the time that an appointed time, or for a meeting or something, or all sorts of things can happen. You might come out to the car, find it's got flat batteries, or a puncture, or any innumerable things could possibilities. But we're then programmed to look on the negative side. But then, what about in the unseen potential? Well, if that hadn't happened, you're going to be somewhere else, and there could be a situation or event that is not in your best interest. But because they're in the unseen, there's no tangible fact to point to. But all these things, everything is potential in this reality. But we also have a way of carving out a path within this informed field outside, or this field outside of ourselves, and we can write our own script through our intentions. And by jumping to the end result, and then the physical reality will catch up because it's solid, it's denser, so it's going to take longer. The bigger the thing you try and manifest, the more inconceivable it might seem. Well, of course it's going to take a long time. If you want to imagine something the size of an ocean liner like the Titanic, well, don't expect it to happen overnight. But doesn't mean you can't do it. If that's what you really want, and you can put that intention and that, really feel it, that I've got this ship called, say, the Titanic. But that's probably not a good choice of ship, but you know what I mean. It's a Titanic from the size in terms of size, anyway. But yeah, I feel anything is possible.
Right. Some of those super yachts they have are pretty extreme. If you want to
Yeah,
manifest a boat, there you go. Manifest a super yacht. But
yeah.
yeah, it's just so cool to be a part of this and being able to tap into our abilities and even knowing about them and being able to have conversations like this. I always just think back to like my parents' generation and the generation before them, and even the ones like the Golden Dawn and all that did look into this kind of stuff. There were very few people worldwide. It wasn't like now with the internet where everybody can get in on the goods, and we're figuring out what all the occulted wisdom is and going through the gnosis. And like I said before, you can just tap right in, and Tesla talked about that too. You can just tap into the source to get the answers. You don't have to go through books or YouTube or anywhere else, and you don't even have to get the answers. That's another thing. You don't even really need any answers. You just need to have some fun and experiences, and help others, and try to get back to being love again.
Well, when the energy or the frequency is right, the answers just come. They just sort of pop into your mind. It's like, oh, where did that come from? And it's like, oh, something you may have been thinking of days before. It will just suddenly come. But yeah, I feel also with the older generations where there were people like Neville Goddard. I know he had a TV series for a short while in the United States, but I assume it's the family are not allowing it for general release. But of course, there was no internet then. So, but now we've got the internet. So I know there's the thing about censorship and all that, but generally, um, you can sort of see that you're on the same wavelength. There's a lot of other people out there. So, and we're all at different stages. You're not all going to agree on everything, and you're going to have different perceptions on things. And of course, there's labels as well. Like Jason says, errands. Agent Elise, from her perspective, will say supernova souls, and no doubt there's countless other labels that are just trying to describe that you're on a different frequency from what this material realm is presenting, and you're seeing things in a different way. So it doesn't matter what it's called, really. It just is. But it's a growing number, and it's beautiful to see unfold. It does look insurmountable in a way, but it isn't. But that's insurmountable, so it's another reference to going in again.
Right, and it's a challenge. It's challenges are fun. They're exciting. If there aren't any challenges, then it just gets boring, right? It's just static. You got to have those challenges, and that's where you get sharpened up. So it's all
Well,
good, and yeah, and yeah,
if
there is no limit.
if you see this from a perspective of someone who's really into computer games, imagine if you could play a game, but you could become a character in the game and have all the sensations. Would that not be the ultimate computer game to play? That to have a thing called the game of life, an experience.
Hmm.
So even if it's a computer game, it's like, well, this must be the ultimate computer game. So hell, I'm going to enjoy it.
No matter how you look at it, the bottom line is you might as well enjoy it,
Yeah.
and make the most out of it and have the most fun and see just how much magic you really have. We probably
Yeah.
ought to go ahead and end this soon, James. It's almost been an hour and 45 minutes.
That's amazing.
Pretty cool.
That's the shortening of days. It's not really. It's only been a third of that time.
Right. The quickening
Yeah.
when you're talking. Yeah,
Well,
but
it's definitely.
yeah, I'm sure we could talk for days, really, because it's just there's so much. You can't even
Well,
express it all in words.
watch for the signs. That term about shortening of days. Don't just see that in a negative. If you can start manifesting, and you keep manifesting, you'll see what shortening of days means, because the things will come to you. I mean, look at this intentional community. There's 3 of you there now in quite a short space of time, against all odds, with Eugene coming from Mexico. Well, there's proof straight away.
And that was very last minute too. Like Eugene had already bought his ticket to Portugal before we even talked to each other.
Wow.
So the whole, yeah. So
That's
we
beautiful.
talked to each other 2 weeks ago about this, I think, and he had his ticket for a while because he didn't really know what he was going to do once he got here. He might just have gone on to Morocco, or he might have gone where his friend Raji is, that he has his YouTube channel with. So that's even more amazing. And Eugene y'all have to watch Eugene's video. I'll put it in the comments of this video where he films being here, and you can see he's just beaming too, like Tabatha. He's just beaming. He loves it here, and he's like the kid of the, 'cause he's 22, so he is a kid. So, but he's just such a good kid, and he's got such chivalry. Like he helps people carry bags and stuff. He's half Korean and half Scottish. So yeah, he's
Excellent.
a really cool kid, and yeah, it's already getting manifested, and he'll bring in people. We already have a couple more people planning to come here in the next couple of months, and then after that, the next couple of months. So yeah, it's going to start growing, and it's really cool. It's fun.
It's all growing, isn't it? Growing the community, growing on the community as well, in the community. So it's beautiful.
Right. Yeah. It's all about growth. All
Yep.
about growth. So yeah, everybody in the chat, thank y'all for being here. We got some of our mainstays in there. And as it's always great to get James's pearls of wisdom, and Tabitha was great. So I'll put some links in the description and the comments when this comes out on YouTube regular. And thanks everyone for being here and for listening. And I hope you have a good morning, afternoon, or evening wherever you are. And remember to always focus on what you want and help others if you can. And you have a great evening, James. And we'll talk maybe tomorrow. And if anybody wants to get in on our Lottie Errant Zoom meetings on Sundays, just post in the comments, and I'll tell you how to do that. All right, everyone. Until next time.